Hello, hello. This is Derek from One Over Tea. Welcome back to another episode of Tea Soup, a podcast all about tea culture, life in modern China, and Chinese tea. I'm your host, Derek Poskin. I've been living in China since 2016, and I've been drinking, buying, and selling Chinese tea for the past decade. So, pop on that kettle, heat up your teaware, and let's get this session started. All right, so thank you all.
Good morning.
Again, this is yeah, we got you. So this is another episode where I'm joined with my partner from the Tea Cooperative, Alex.
Good morning. Ohayou gozaimasu, boys and girls.
Ohayou gozaimasu. Yeah, so that's a little bit of Japanese for you guys. And that I actually just spent like 2 weeks in Japan on a trip, seeing my brother sourcing some pretty cool teaware that went out to the Shigaraki Tea Festival. There's an American potter, Jonathan Steele, who's out doing a residency there. And I kind of went out on behalf of Tao Teaware, looking at some wood-fired pieces because, for whatever reason, the Japanese wood-fired teaware is way cheaper than Chinese wood-fired teaware. And I'm not sure exactly why, but that's something we can dig into, look into. But yeah, another thing I wanted to do when I was out in Japan is source some Japanese tea, of course. So Alex, what Japanese teas are you interested in?
So I think before I was interested in gyok, just because it was kind of...
Gyok?
It has the same characters as Yulu, right? Yeah, Gyokuro has the same characters as Yulu in Chinese. I think it is often compared to, I guess, Yulu here in Ensha. People talk about it a lot. But it's not really sold here. I've only ever seen it sold like one fancy tea shop down in Guizhou that kind of specialized more in matcha and then matcha adjacent products. So it's something I hear a lot about, but I can't really buy it. Yep.
Was that place in Guizhou actually selling Japanese tea? Or were they selling their approximation of it?
So this person had gone to Japan to study matcha and then had come back to be like the technician on hand to make sure they're doing it right. And she had a bunch of tea from Japan she could sell there. This is the person who told me straight up, do not buy the matcha here. The matcha is not good. Hold on.
And it was
kind
not.
of breaking up. It was not good. Hold on. Go on.
Yeah, so in our experience, like the Chinese matchas have always just been horrendous.
That's right.
Undrinkable, bitter. Yeah.
Yeah, I was excited that you're going to Japan so we could try more. Not really so matcha, because matcha seems like it's a whole world. Like, on this one Discord server, I see matcha is now a separate channel from green tea. And there's so much, I think, discussion, and there's so much maybe culture and stuff around it that I'm slightly intimidated by matcha, whereas I do not feel so intimidated when it comes to gyokuro or some of these senchas. Another friend of mine had come back from Japan recently and brought me some sencha, which I drank this morning in lieu of coffee, and that stuff works. I think for how it's produced, by breaking up the leaves like it is, like there's just so much more stuff getting into the water. There's so much more content of the leaves getting into the water that when you drink it, it just hits so good. For those of you in the Northwest, you may recall there was a product called a sencha shot, or maybe elsewhere in America, I don't know. But like, you used to be able to buy it at the grocery store for like $3, tiny little can. And inside was just like, I guess, just really strong brewed sencha. And you just hit that and it works like an energy drink. It really is.
Okay, so that's what you mean by when it hits really strong because of the leaves are broken up. You mean energy-wise.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Because for me, the flavor is also really, really strong. And so this is like the first brew. And so it'll just get even more thick than this. But usually it's so thick it's almost opaque and you can't quite see through it. And yeah, so this is a sencha as well. And while you said Gyokuro is very similar to Ensha Yulu, it has the same characters and everything, I feel like they're still very different. I feel like sencha would be the more upbeat approximation of Ensha Yulu. Why is this? It's because Gyokuro is covered, it's shade grown. And there's like no Ensha Yulu that's shade grown, except for maybe one guy doing experiments. A majority of the Ensha Yulu is just left under the sun, which is what's done for sencha.
Yep, and I feel like at least the sencha I've had, I think 2 senchas so far, they do still have a lot of that nice kind of creaminess to them, which is prized in Yulu. It doesn't hurt me. It's not astringent. It's not painful. It's vegetal in a different way than a lot of green teas are. There's no painful kick to it anywhere in my mouth.
But for me, the sencha is still a world apart from any Ensher Yulu I've ever had. I'm for me, they are not similar teas.
Is it the lack of any citrus notes?
I think that's it. Like, yeah, like the Ensher Yulu has the citrus notes, right? And then like the sencha, it's just pure cream. It's like cream, it's green bean. The sweetness is a completely different style of sweetness to it. I don't know. It just tastes completely different.
I guess, like, I think, the internet often uses, like, oh, it's creamy, it's umami, it's cabbagey kind of sweetness. Like, that's the language I see people talking about. But yeah, and it seems largely true that those kind of citrus notes you would get, not just in Yulu, but in a golden green, but in a lot of, like, I think, Chinese green teas, it's just not there. So there's something, something nice about them.
Yeah, so it's not there, but it also has a whole depth that is not available in Chinese green teas. And so for me, even though it's like the same characters, even though it's, ideally it's steamed processed, it's very, very similar, they're still worlds apart.
One experiment I do want to do, though, now is I want to take, like, the best, highest grade steamed Ensher Yulu and just crunch it up, like in one of those, like, little, like, medicinal, you know what I'm talking about?
Grind it up a bit.
With, like, a mortar, like, totally crush it up, mortar and pestle, and then just see what happens.
Are you trying to make matcha?
Obviously. I'm not trying to make matcha. No, not quite that fine, but just, like, break it into small particulate matter. Because I think in China, they almost go too far in trying to preserve that nice shape, right? You want this nice unit of tea. And if they break it up a bit more, I suspect we're going to get more of the leaf juice into the water and into my mouth. So I wonder what that will do.
Yeah, I mean, for Japanese teas and Chinese teas, you have like two divergent trains of development, right? This goes back to, whatever the Taida revolutions, or not revolutions, but the inventions of a bunch of new material from China coming into Japan in like the 700s and the Tang Dynasty is when tea is introduced, Buddhism is introduced, and then you have like two runaway trains. So during that time, like, and a lot of the green tea, a lot of the tea in China was steam processed. It was ground, it was pressed into cake, it was drank in that more matcha style. And so it seems like Japan just kept developing that side. And then Japan, in the Ming Dynasty, Zhu Yanzhang says all tea should be loose leaf. And so we're no longer pressing into cakes, we're no longer grinding it up, we're drinking it in a different way. And so China kind of develops on a different track. Japan keeps going down this other track. And it's kind of looking at a different future of what would it be like if China didn't get into loose leaf tea. I feel like that's more the course of history Japan has taken for their tea development.
Yeah, but you mentioned it's incredibly standardized. Like, the only hint I had encountered of that before was, like, when I saw some statistic on, like, this one cultivar used across the entire country for much of the green tea, which I thought was interesting. In Japan, which is certainly not true anywhere, even in Ensha Prefecture. Is there, that level of consolidation of one cultivar, or Longjing for that matter? So I'm curious, in what ways did you notice, I guess, standardization or homogenization in Japanese tea?
You mentioned the cultivar. I think the cultivar is actually where you get a lot of the different styles of matcha, the different styles of tea and stuff like that. The processing, it's almost like the processing is identical, right? And so this is the high level of standardization where the pick is done, machine pick. The processing is all done by machines. It's all pressed through this to certain extents. And so that level of homogenization is incredible, where every single thing, like, you take any type of tea picked anywhere in the country and it'll all be produced the same way. And then what differences do you have within the teas themselves? Maybe you have terroir, maybe you have the different cultivars and stuff like that. And so, my level of standardization that I would see is that it seems like, I don't know, in my brief experience exploring the Japanese teas when I was there, the more money you pay, the better tea you get. And it's just a one-to-one kind of thing where it's like, this is higher quality tea and it costs more money. In China, we can find like the unknown, really magical teas that no one knows about, that the price is still very low, that we can offer at a very affordable price and is really, really high quality. One thing, though, I do want to talk about is why is there no Japanese tea in China? Why do the Chinese-based vendors often not sell Japanese tea?
Contamination, right?
Because, because of governmental soft power.
But yeah,
What were you
like
saying?
yeah, like you have to provide that slip of paper, right? There needs some documentation to demonstrate the tea has not been contaminated. I think what this comes from is like the seafood stuff, because like Japanese seafood was being restricted before in response to the Fukushima
Right.
wastewater, being released into the ocean. And then it just expanded onto other Japanese foods. But tea is, yeah, I didn't know that was included in that. So,
Well, I think it's reading between the lines on this. There's the soft power political struggles between China and Japan where it's like, well, we're not going to allow you to import this because we already have it, right? And so they're going to make it really difficult to import things that China can already produce. One of them is tea. Another of them is like food and seafood, stuff like that, where it's like, why are we importing from Japan when we could produce it ourselves? And so the governments are making it really, really difficult to do this. But the rationale behind it is it's dirty, it's contaminated. We need this slip of paper that no one knows what this slip of paper is. However, Japan can export tea to the EU. Japan can export tea to Americas, really anywhere in the world. And so it's really only an issue getting tea from Japan into China, which is why a lot of Chinese vendors are not selling Japanese teas.
yeah, it checks out. I mean, it would be annoying to try to like figure out how to get it through some other way. Like you have to, put it through Hong Kong first, and then I don't know. It'd be annoying. It's too strong.
Yeah,
You're not liking it.
it would be borderline smuggling to get it in here. Anyways, this
What's
tea,
wrong?
it's so strange. Like for me, like the sweetness is I can't identify the sweetness the same way I would for Chinese teas. This is the sencha. It's all on the sides of the tongue. It's really, really savory. It's like seaweed water. It's like totally strange. Anyways,
Yeah, you ever have like the sweet pea drink? You're talking about
sweet pea ice cream. Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, is it like sweet pea drink or sweet pea ice cream?
That's what it taste some of the sencha I got. Who brought you sencha back, by the way?
It was Giacomo.
Do we trust his taste in tea?
I
Do you
think
think it was
he bought
high
it from a
quality
grocery
tea?
store.
Okay.
I think it's from a grocery. I asked him for Gyokuro, and he got me this. So it's not what I
Yeah.
asked for.
So I went
But it
I went to
yeah.
Uji, I went to the factories where they're producing this tea, the gardens where they're picking it and stuff like that. And Japan is very different from China, where Japan needs appointments. Like they do not like spontaneous, you show up and we'll figure it out. They're like, oh, you should have reserved the spot last week, stuff like that. And so I wasn't able to tour any of these factories. And even to get samples, if I wanted like commercial samples, I had to email people in another city that were their authentic exporter of this tea. And it seemed very business-like, right? Where in China, it's very much like, whatever, you show up on my mountain, I'll give you tea, I'll sell you tea. So anyways, I was actually in the factories and I bought these teas from the factory gift shop, if you will. But anyways, I think
It's interesting you mentioned that because like that's kind of how it feels on Junshan Island. Other than anywhere else I've
okay,
been
yeah.
in China, I mean, maybe in Longjing it's the same. But like because it's such like a tourist destination, because it is run by the province, but also the prefecture, but also these private investors now. It's like it is so standardized, and they have such a lock on this island and the tea there that when you go there, it's only one place where you can buy tea. Here's the Junshan, here's the cultural whatever center. This is where we're selling tea. You go to the factory, there's no tea here. You walk around Junshan Township, not a single shop is selling it. There's only one place to buy it. So it's truly like they got a lock on that in a similar way. But on the sencha thing still, like maybe something good about that is despite the fact that maybe this friend bought it for me at like a random grocery store for a reasonable price, there is a quality expected with that price, right? So he's not, he needs not know anything about Japanese tea or tea in general. Okay, this is a relatively higher price. It's going to be okay, right? There are situations in China where you could spend a sum of money and get like garbage. That can happen. But I think hopefully in Japan, the price and the value like, in terms of like quality should be more consistent, I think.
right. And that was my experience too. It was kind of difficult to find really bad tea, which like in China it's really easy to find very, very bad tea. I've kind of felt this way as well in Taiwan. In Taiwan it seems difficult to find really bad Taiwanese teas just because like the level of standardization, quality, farming practices are very standardized and very good usually. But last thing before we jump into Junshan, which is the topic for this podcast, is the Junshan yellow tea. I want to talk about just comparing Gyokuro, Sencha, and Ensure Yulu. We actually had some people, they were the ones who bought the Ensure Yulu blind sampler, right? This is the microwaved, the steamed, and the tumbler kill-greened teas that we were releasing. Are they still available on the website?
They're still available, but the answers are there, so you'll be spoiled.
So it was essentially this blind sampler of, we found this one guy who was making Ensure Yulu and killing the green in 3 different ways. And so we bought samples of the stuff he was using microwaves to kill the green, the stuff he was using steam, and the stuff he was using the traditional oven-style tumbler. And then we put these all in a blind sampler and have people drink it and see if they can figure out which one's which. Some of the people that bought this, I think it's a Tea Can in Vancouver, they bought this and they did a tasting between Ensure Yulu and some Gyokuro. And it was really interesting, and I asked them what their experiences were for it, but I think after drinking some real Gyokuro and some real Sencha, I think I know what the differences are in a much profound way. And so it's really cool just to realize, like, we have these theories, we have these hypotheses, but it really doesn't beat actually drinking the teas and tasting and testing them. I'll leave it to you, Alex. You can do some tastings as well now that you have some nice Gyokuro, some nice Sencha and stuff.
Potentially already sitting in the office, it sounds like. Hopefully.
So, getting back into the topic of this episode, you mentioned Junshan. You mentioned that really, and I've run into this a few places before, where it's a very government sanctioned, where it's like, we cannot sell tea on the side. Like, all of our tea goes to this one entity, and then you have to go through that entity to buy the tea. And it happens in micro regions in China, but it seemed like that was very much the standard way it's done in Japan. So what is Junshan yellow tea and why do we want it?
Okay, so like, this is probably the most popular yellow tea in the world. Like, if you look at yellow tea, you just search it on Google, Bing, Baidu, whatever you want. This is going to be the tea you're going to run into first. If you look in like the official Chinese tea grading like course book, the only yellow tea they actually give guidelines for is Junshan Yinzhen. This is the only yellow tea that really survived. That 1979 book we're fond of, like the famous teas of China, that is the only yellow tea named as a contemporary surviving tea. So it's the only one that was still around by the 1970s. So unlike in Anhui, where we visited, where yellow tea had died out, it never really died out in Hunan. So like, this is it. This is like the yellow tea, which is, it's the most popular. It's the most consistently produced historically. There was no reinvention of it really. And this is the one which is like the guideline in China when people are grading yellow tea. For example, those categories we ran into in Anhui, Huangdacha, Huangshaocha, Huangyacha, it comes from Yueyang. I only learned recently. So that comes from Yueyang yellow teas. So this is it. This is the big meatball. This is everything about yellow tea in China. I think really kind of gets inspired in like the 1980s when Yueyang tries to start making this like a kind of commercial luxury commodity again. I think the yellow tea industry in China kind of develops in reaction to that. Like in Anhui, that professor was only called to meet Lao Rao in the village in 1986 and 87. After Yueyang had already started to relaunch their yellow tea. Mengding only started relaunching their yellow tea in the early 90s, again after Yueyang. So I think Yueyang, this is it. This is like the yellow tea which really kind of brings us here, drinking yellow tea and talking about yellow tea in this modern context. I think, this is the place.
Yeah,
now,
I think like yellow.
Is really gone. Sorry.
I think yellow tea, it's always something that we hear about, right? We hear about the 6 types of tea. White, green, yellow, blue, that's oolong, black, and red. And then black is that fermented tea. However, for a lot of these teas, you have myriad examples. You have hundreds of different pu'ers. You have hundreds of different green teas. Every village makes its own green tea. But with yellow tea, it's dwindled down to like 3 or 4 places that I can think of. There's Huoshan, the Jinjishan, which is we're getting that Anhui yellow tea. There's this Junshan, which is the silver needle, and there's Mengding, right? Do you know of any other modern places that are producing yellow tea?
Supposedly, there's one in Jiangsu. I've never heard of it. So was one close? Well, it's like Mogan Mountain, something mountain. The mountain over there.
Moganshan. That's got to be modern.
Have you been to this Mogan Mountain?
I have.
It's got to be modern.
And
Okay.
I thought it was in Zhejiang. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there's some tea over there, and it is yellow. It's allegedly yellow tea, but
I'll check it out next time I go out there.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's
Supposedly.
really interesting to be one of the 6 types of teas, but then there are so few real examples of it. And so for me, the only way I know about the Junshan silver needle, the Junshan yellow tea, is from China's list of the top 10 teas. And now here's a time for me to quiz Alex. Alex, what is in the standard list? What are the Chinese top 10 teas? The most famous
Fake news.
teas in China.
Fake news. So like there is the early like 1930s one for an exhibition. There's the 58 one. There's the early 60s one. It gets updated constantly. What is not in the top 10 Chinese famous teas? Pick your favorite. But
I don't know.
Yeah,
I got a list here.
You have a list here.
Ensure
All right,
Yulu is
where
not, is
is
not
this
there.
list? Oh, okay, there's no list.
Yeah, you have to guess, and then I'll tell you.
Okay.
If you think about the list, what would be?
Longjing is on your list. You will find Longjing.
Longjing is
Longjing on your
always
list?
number 1. Longjing is always number
Yeah,
1.
it's gotta be on there. Bilochun is on your list.
Bilochun, yep, Bilochun is on the list. You got 2.
Okay, better be. Junshan Shaozhong is on your list.
Junshan Shaozhong is not on my list.
Really? Okay.
No.
Pu'er tea is on your list.
Pu'er tea is on the list, but it's kind of a cop out. Like, how dare you call pu'er tea one type of tea? Like,
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. But we're getting all of these teas. Is Guapian on your list?
Guapian is on the list.
That's funny. Yeah. Is
Yeah.
Dansong on your list?
No, of course not.
Okay, so Guapian makes the cut, but Dansong does not make the cut. Very well. I understand. Is Chima on your list? Chima? Does Chima make the cut?
Chiman is the black tea that is on the list. Yeah, it's not
The
Junshan
black tea.
Shaozhong.
I guess
Yes.
it's like the big export one. It kind of makes sense. Hua Heicha is on your list.
Anhua Heicha is
two dark
not
teas at least?
on the list.
Wow. Okay. Lao Qingjuan? Is that the other? Is that the dark tea they used
No.
instead? No, it's just
No,
Pu'er.
it's
Pu'er
not.
is the dark tea. Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
pu'er is
very
the
well.
dark tea. Think
I
of
said
more
Bilochun. I
beans.
said something. What am I missing? What are we missing on there? Is the Junshan
Anhui.
Yinzhen on this top 10?
Yes, it is. Yeah, the Junshan Yingzhen is on the top 10. Yeah,
Oh wow! How about that? That
which
makes
is
the cut.
why I know about it. Yeah.
Okay.
There's another Anhui.
Hokui.
It's not
You got the Hokui
Hokui,
on?
it's the other one.
Maofeng.
Maofeng. Huangshan Maofeng.
Maofeng is delicious. This is one day, one of these days. Hopefully next
Yeah,
year.
you
I
have
to go
two
there. I
more
really-
two more oolongs you didn't get. You picked the lesser known third oolong of China.
Okay, sure. This is the. Is it just Yancha in general? I'm imagining it's just a category.
Yeah,
This is
Yancha. They say Da Hong Pao, but I'll just amount it to
okay.
Yancha.
Okay.
The other
There's one more.
oolong-
Taeguanyin.
Taeguanyin.
Ding,
Yep.
ding, ding. Okay.
And then of course it hurts me you didn't get this one. It's the white tea by Hao Yinzhen.
Baihao Yinzhen. Oh, okay. Baihao Yinzhen makes the cut. Okay. What?
Yeah.
I'm
So
trying to figure out the algo. What is the algo
yeah,
here?
recap. Let's recap. So number 1, Longjing, Dragonwell. Number 2, Huangshan Maofeng. Number 3, Bilochun. Number 4, Taeguanyin. Number 5, Junshan Yingzhen. This one is yellow tea from Junshan. Number 6, Kimen tea. That's a black tea. Number 7, Dao Hong Pao, or Yancha. Number 8, Luan Guapian. Number 9, by Hao Yingzhen. And number 10, Pu'er tea. There it is. So I've
Written by a person like Fujian, probably. I don't know.
written by a blogger. Yeah, written by a modern Chinese blogger.
Okay.
Updated every now and then, but there are some
Yeah.
things that stay consistent. And Junshan Yingzhen is always on the top 10 list. So is Dragonwell, so is Bilochun, so is Maofeng, so is some kind of Yancha. Yeah. And so it's so strange that a tea that is so popular has like no domestic market, has no international market. Like I can't tell you, I've never drunk this tea until you sent it to me.
Well, I'm happy you have never drunk it until now, because I have had many things called this before, and I've hated them for the most part. Like, remember years ago when I was first piqued, my interest was piqued into yellow tea by our dear friend Dylan. So we did this. Oh, go ahead.
This is the Junshan Yingzhen that I'm drinking right now. As you can see, it's really small leaves, thin buds, and slightly yellow. So Dylan introduced you to this tea at the start?
Yeah, this is the first time in all of our years together where the tea itself, not any of the tea associated stuff, the tea itself, like, I don't know, it just captivated me. He sent me this sample of, it was Anhui tea. I guess there have been 2 times, both from Dylan for some reason. One was Maofeng, which I still never done anything with. The other time was this yellow tea sample he had sent me, and it was great. And I wanted more yellow tea, but he didn't have any. So I went and bought yellow tea at the local tea shop, and it was terrible. It was listed as Junshan Yinjian. This is in Jingzhou. Later in Ensha, when I was visiting, I had another one at a tea shop, again listed as Junshan Yinjian, and it was terrible. It was grassy. It was astringent. It was green tea. It was green tea.
Yeah.
It was probably green tea from Sichuan, shipped to Yueyang,
Ouch.
listed as Yinjian, and then sold online. And it did not even have the basic characteristics of Yinjian. Obviously, one of the big things, Yinjian, it's got to be silver, right? It's got to have that fuzz. It's fuzzy because the local heirloom Tuntijong is fuzzy. That's like one of the basic characteristics. And it's a jun, it's a needle, right? So often these fake ones, they do get that nice needle shape, but it does not have the fuzz. And like the buds, as I'm sure you've seen, like they're kind of plump. There's a certain plumpness to them. There's a certain plumpness to the buds. They're not exactly like the proper, like, you know. I mean, Yulu also wants it to be a jun, like a needle, right? But it's long and
totally
thin, right?
It's green.
Whereas these, it's totally different. It's a totally different thing, right? So like, this is a whole different, ball game, and it's a very unique shape. And I don't know, it has that flavor which I received in that sample years ago, but it's better. It's just more enhanced. It's more savory. It's more meaty. It's more. It goes beyond just like the corn and taro aromas. I feel like it just turns it up to a new level. So this is the most yellow tea I have ever, like the yellowest yellow tea I've ever consumed has been this stuff in Yueyang. But I have only ever had it in Yueyang. Before this point, buying it outside, I only had fake stuff.
What's interesting about this is, I'm going to be honest with you, I prefer the stuff we're getting out of Anhui over this stuff from Yueyang. Just because, like, for Yueyang, I can see, it's clearly yellow tea, and I see the similarities between what we're getting in Anhui, but for whatever reason, like, the Anhui stuff just, checks my boxes way more than this stuff does. I don't know. Maybe I need to drink more of it, but...
Is it the older stuff you like better, or is it like do you like the orthodox stuff better, or like more of the Huifeng stuff better? Like, what's the yellow tea you like better in Anhui?
I like the big yellow leaf. The Huang Da Cha.
Okay.
Like that is my favorite yellow tea. But anyways, I wasn't there on the sourcing trip. And so let's get back into, I think you wanted to tell us the history of yellow tea. Like, is this an ancient type of tea?
Okay, so like when you get to this island, and it's very, they've done a really good job. I'm sure many like tourism major student has spent a long time there, like getting it up to date. When you arrive there, they can tell you the myth, supposedly in the Shah dynasty or whatever. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Hang on. Tell me about this myth. But start with the story goes
No,
this.
I'm sure Campbell wants to hear the myth, I'm sure. I don't want to hear that. Fine. Okay, so supposedly this is the island of an ancient emperor and his concubine, right? And his concubine was from here, and it was a lovely place, and a pavilion was built there. And there was tea, and a concubine, and later, like all the emperors knew to go back there and get this tribute tea, supposedly. Yeah. So, like, supposedly this is an ancient, renowned site. No. I think, so hear me out. So, like, if you look at the lake that Yueyang is located on, it's the Dongting Lake. It's the big lake. It's the Hu in Hubei. It's the Hu in Hunan, right? Hubei north of lake, Hunan south of lake. This is like, this was the big geographic marker of the south. When people talked about the Jiangnan, like the south of the river, back in the day, or like the Chudi, the land of Chu, this is what they had in their mind. Swamp. This is a big, giant swamp. And if you look at it like on a map, you know what an aortic dissection is? You know what that means?
Nope.
It's a very quick way to die. It's when blood, so you imagine your blood vessel. There are layers in the blood vessel, and blood starts to go up in between the layers, and it kind of pulls open like that. Eventually, it pops like a balloon. Imagine, like, if you look at a map of Dongting Lake, it looks like that. It looks like it's starting to pull. There are all these little, like, canals cut through it. It's a mess. It's a mess because people have been flocking there. People have been flocking there and cutting canals. People have been building rice paddies like deeper and deeper into the lake, challenging nature, like the Dutch did with all their dikes. Yeah, it's like really is like incredible to see what people have done to this lake. The lake
now, does this lake feature in history at all? Like you mentioned, it's is what people think of the South. What about? I'm thinking of the Water Margin, Outlaws of the Marsh, right? Like one of the four great novels.
For the longest time, I was convinced Water Margin was there. I thought Water Margin was there. And then Master Phelan corrected me, and it was historically swampy Shandong province. Isn't that blow your mind?
What?
I thought it was the whole time. I thought it was Dongting Lake. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was like South Hunan, the wilds of like central China and stuff like that.
No, because you would never think in Shandong, oh yeah, swamp. I guess because the north is much drier now than it used to be. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I had the same idea for the longest time.
Cool.
But it does feature in Three Kingdoms, kind of, right? This is like so you may recall. So like Liu Bei tricks the leader of Wu, right? The leader of the Wu country. And when he gets Sichuan, right? When he steals Sichuan, he says, "Oh, I'm just gonna go take care of that warlord over there," and then conquers all of it. Well, Yueyang, Jingzhou, these are two places that were given originally as a gift from like the emperor of Wu, like Sun Quan. He had given it as a gift to Liu Bei, right? Because he had lost all his territory in the north. Then Liu Bei goes and takes Sichuan, and he wants to keep basically Jingzhou, Yueyang being the super important port, right? And then old Sun is like, no, you're going to give that back, right? You've made your own kingdom way over here in Sichuan. I want, basically Hubei and Hunan back. And they almost have a fight, and they have a great meeting, and eventually they decide to cut it along the Xiang River, which would cut modern-day Yueyang in half. So if you follow that, the Xiang River is the biggest river in Hunan. It flows north from Guizhou, up through Changsha, into Yueyang, where it enters the Yangtze River. So like, they decide to cut basically Hunan and modern-day Yueyang City in half during the Three Kingdoms period. That's the arrangement between Liu Bei and then Sun Quan. So this is like, the site where they finally figure out, okay, we're not going to fight each other. We have bigger fish, aka Cao Cao, to worry about up north. So, yeah.
So Yueyang,
cool... Yep.
The port of Yueyang just gets split in half. Is that right?
So at the time, I think the port then, as it is now, is on it would be the east side, like the side that Sun Quan got, right? But this area is vast, right? So it would still. I think Liu Bei did not walk away. He did not walk away from this deal in a bad situation. But yeah, we'll talk a bit more about Yueyang today. So this, because of this like historical deal, the famous general from Sun Quan's side, I guess as inspiration from him and his hat or something. There's some weird myth. I didn't quite get it when I was there, but because of this guy, this general in Sun's army, they build the Yueyang Tower later. The Yueyang Tower on the port, right? I think, and then by the Song Dynasty, it's a famous tourist destination. You want to go to the Yueyang Tower, right? It's one of the three great towers of Jiangnan, of the South River, right? One's there, one is in Wuhan, right? The Yellow Crane Tower, and one is in, what's the other one? It's the one in Jiangxi. There's one more. The three great towers of the South: Yueyang-lo, Huanghe-lo. Jiangxi Tower. We'll fix it in post. Yeah, whatever the tower is in Jiangxi. So people are going there, right? This is a port town. This is where tribute teas are passing through. Fun fact: Loshui River in Hafeng flows south, and eventually ends up joining the Yuan River, which then flows through Baojing, where Golden Green comes from, which then flows into the Dongting Lake. Dark tea from Anhua along the Zi River flows north into Yiyang, which then flows into the Dongting Lake. All of
Interesting.
these teas on their journey to Beijing are going through Yueyang. So
That's amazing.
this is the port where this is all going to pass through. Any of these Hunan teas or Guizhou teas, this is where we're going through. So in Yueyang, I think these teas are way, way older than this Junshan. Way, way older than this yellow tea. The tea is coming from the south. The tea is coming from all over that flows into this lake. Like the first I know, like first historical account I can find online. So okay, Qing Dynasty. Only in the Qing Dynasty do we know that there is tea from Junshan Island, and it was a gongcha, so it was one of these tribute teas. But like these descriptions, I don't know, man. Nan yu yi lian xin. So it is tender green. Like the tender green, like the inside of a lotus, like a lotus,
Yeah.
the pond. I'm talking about like the.
Doesn't sound like a
you
yellow
open it up,
tea.
like, the green stalk, right? It doesn't sound yellow at all. Does not sound yellow. The one thing which is consistent is they talk about the baimao, the white fuzz.
Oh, okay.
That seems consistent. Another description.
Potentially the same cultivar, just a different make style, right?
Yeah. So here, try this one on for size. Another one. This is now a Republican era text. Junshan cha se yi se 那个龙井. So it's like the Junshan tea flavor taste is similar to that of Longjing. In taste,
Interesting.
in color, whatever. It's like Longjing. But the leaves are a bit wider. That's true. Got the big fat leaves. And it's a little bit more green. Yeah, that doesn't sound quite
More green.
quite right. So I'm not sure when the yellowness, when exactly historically was the yellowness like there. It was certainly there by 1950. So liberation happens, right? Red Army comes through, and agronomists get sent to Junshan Island. Now, Junshan Island was already, again, since the Qing Dynasty, we know at least, it had been a place where there was going to be tribute teas sent by whoever was in charge of Yueyang up to Beijing. So it was a known quantity. It was a known place. Okay, there are existing tea fields here. There's a couple monasteries there built, I think, in part to be a tourist destination. In the Qing Dynasty, there was heck of tourism around temples, right? And this is like a nice place, just far enough away from the port, which is not, by the way, not a beautiful looking thing. It's a giant shallow lake, and there are tons of boats passing through. What color do you think is the water? Could you guess
totally
the water
brown.
color?
Yeah.
It's totally brown, right? It's not. So like this is far enough away from the city that you, as a literati, could go there, right? You take a boat for a couple hours, plop down on the island. Wow, I'm free. I'm free from the hustle and bustle and filth, and you can walk around and drink your tea. So, great tourism destination. And these agronomists show up there in 1950. I've been to their dorms, not in good repair. Someone's still living there. I'm not sure if it's like the children of those original agronomists or I don't know who's there, but people are living there. It is occupied. Got a nice picture of it. But yeah, so they get there, and then they are the ones who, through the Hunan Provincial Tea Company, start making yellow tea, like officially, as we know it today. We know, like, because they're the ones who they have it codified. Okay, we're going to first kill the green, lay it out, then we're going to first do a first drying, wrap it up into these like little text. What would you call them? Not text.
Packages.
Textile, whatever it is, like butcher paper.
Cloth-
I'm not sure
cloth
how do you
bags.
describe cloth bags. Thank you. Yeah,
Cloth
like these little
packets.
cloth bags, cloth packets. There we go, cloth packets. But interestingly, unlike in Anhui, it appears to be slightly abbreviated. So it's not 3 dries, 3 yellows. It's just the 2 yellows. So there's only 2. It's 2 yellowings, punctuated by drying. Right. So it's dry, yellow, yellow.
And so the
Not quite
yellow
as-
process is them wrapping it up in the cloth. And so
That's right. Yeah, that's
they'll make
gonna
the
be
tea like normal, then wrap it up in cloth, and then let it sit there for like how many hours? Like a day?
Like a day for the first time. I think more than a day for the first time, actually. And then for the
Okay, and
second
then they'll-
one, it's going to be just like 10 to 20 hours, from what I understand.
But yeah, so more than a day for the first one, then they take it out and then they dry it, completely dry it,
Mhm.
right? And then they'll wrap it up again and let it mung again. This is the yellowing process.
Yep.
Didn't we see
That's
this
right, yep.
happening briefly in Luan Guapian, where it's like
Ever,
they
yeah,
made a bunch of
ever.
tea and just piled it and then covered it and just let it sit for like few hours. It wasn't like 20 hours, but it was like because they had that space between like, oh, we're making all the tea now and then we'll dry it later tonight. But in the meantime, instead of like letting it cool off, we're just gonna and let all of this hot, sticky tea just like sit within itself.
And I am increasingly suspecting, like that's just, there are lots of green teas that have a certain yellowing element. For example, there is this Sichuan tea I had in Beijing, and it tasted like a yellow tea. It tasted like the yellow light, like some of like the lighter yellow teas, but it was more.
Yeah.
It was more yellow than Lao Rao's tea, but it's marketed as a green tea. And like it was tarrowy, it was corny, there was no astringency, but it's marketed again as a green tea. So I'm very, very interested in this like spectrum of green to yellow. And I suspect what you're talking about is exactly what's going on, right? Some green teas are just allowed to sit in hot, sticky piles, and a hot, sticky, hot, sticky moisture means you're going to have a yellowing process. The same chemical processes are happening. So.
Yeah, that like slight fermentation, if you will.
Yep.
So that goes into the history of the yellow tea up until you mentioned like the 50s, right?
Yep. So 50s, okay, we got it going again. And from the 50s, we already have established, now we have some yellow tea we can give to party leaders. We can give it out to foreign guests, right? I think, there's like 10 lists of whatever Chinese teas. Those are always like going to be something you point to when you're giving it to a foreign friend, right? Oh, so-and-so, you're visiting Hunan's only like international port, Yueyang. Welcome to our city, and this is our fancy provincial yellow tea. This is how we treat our guests, right? So like this is definitely, it's promotion for Hunan. This is something you can give to the official state visitors. By 58 already though, there was, already this is a great leap forward. A lot of technicians get sent down to the countryside to start new industries. This is when the first wave of people arrive in Hafeng to build the state farm. And in Yueyang, some of those people who were there as staff get sent down south of Changsha to make something called gaoqiao tea, which you've never heard of, which is now completely irrelevant. But in the 50s and 60s, this was the new breakthrough in green tea. We're going to make it in a wok. It's going to be super duper fast, and we're going to kind of roll it. And it makes the shape, which has been inherited by also technicians from the same state tea company who were sent out to Beijing to make golden green later in the 80s. Like that kind of rolled kind of shape I'm talking about, that kind of curliness.
Yeah.
That lovely curly shape. And how they tishang, like how they get it extra fragrant in the wok. Supposedly.
Yeah, that tishang is a really interesting thing we just saw in Beijing, yeah.
Supposedly tishang starts in gaoqiao and then gets spread to other places in Hunan. So okay, that makes sense. We're moving away from yellow tea. It's way easier and faster to produce, right?
It's uniquely a Hunan thing that we saw that tishang. Is that tishang is the final stage. Like after they make the tea, after they dry it, then they slightly bake it in like this like little oven, and it creates this really fragrant, crisp tea.
Yeah, and I've noticed like, that's just like the Hunan variant on what we saw in Anhui when they're kind of re-roasting the tea, if you will. Or what?
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, but it's different. It's different. Hunan, they figured something out in 58 down there in Gaoqiao. Although the tea does not survive, like there is a shape and a style and a process from there which I think has inspired other things, other teas in Hunan. But cool. This means that by 79, when that book we have comes out, if you go to like the section on Gaoqiao / Yinzhen, it's one section. I'm sure whoever was in charge of the Hunan Tea Company is like, all right, this is your section, put in what you want. And he puts both in there. And like, it's all about, yeah, we used to make this yellow tea. It was terrible. It took all this time. But now we have made the people's tea, and it is way faster and way tastier, and everyone loves it. And gaoqiao is the way. You can still buy gaoqiao, apparently, on Taobao. For the Taobao fans who are crazy enough, you can buy it directly from the Hunan Provincial Tea Company. So, but I just don't think, I think it's died for a reason. I think the gaoqiao, it's interesting, but it's copyable and it can be done everywhere. Junshan Yinzhen, that's Junshan. That's Yueyang. It's the weight of that history and tradition, the gravitas of that. I think it means that we're talking about it still, and no one else is talking about gaoqiao.
I think it's cool. Even in the 1970s, like that 79 book, he's trying to push aside Junshan Yingzhen and for like the people's tea, the new development and stuff like that. And so even in the 79s, like Junshan is a way of the past, right? Junshan Yingzhen. And so it does suggest a decent history. And as you said, the gravitas, where it's like you can't even edit it out of history because it will return.
Yep. Yeah. But going there, right? So again, all of this background knowledge, all this excitement. I'm going to Dongting Lake. I'm going to Yeong. This is the tea. This is like, this is the yellow. And when I get there, I'm with Cheyenne and Jason. And Jason was like volunteer, helping out here a lot now, learning tea, I guess, together in Ensha. And we get there, and it's July, and it's the bog. It's like being in the bayou. It's like being in Mississippi. It's really hot
in the summertime.
It's a really hot
and humid
summer. Hot and humid, yeah, late July, early August, and it's hot. It's really, really hot. Yeah, I remember getting there, and like you couldn't go anywhere in the daytime. And finally, like 6 o'clock, it was reaching a temperature we could go walk in Junshan. And everywhere you go, you see these signs, Junshan tea, like the Junshan tea area, wonderful tea, whatever. Like there's all these like signs about, but there's no tea. It's lotus ponds. It's fish ponds, it's shrimp ponds. It's a bog. There is no tea to be seen if you walk around most of Junshan district. And eventually, after like walking around the villages, we decided to go into town, the Junshan township, right, center of this district. And there's only 2 places I could find that had any tea at all, and they were both like mahjong places. And at the first place, she pulled out this like plastic bag, like green tea, which had been sitting in the window forever, and she's like, 这个是黄的. Like, this is yellow, I guess. And it was, she's correct, it had become yellow, but not a place where tea was being consumed for tea. And I asked her, like, is it from Junshan? And she's like, no, I don't know where it's from. So again, that was curious. The second mahjong tea parlor, same situation. They had better tea. It was in the refrigerator, but it was green tea. And it was not from Junshan Island. But there was a tip.
Wow.
A tip from the second person. She was like, okay, you're not going to find any Junshan yellow tea around here. You got to go to the island, and you have to go to the center, and you have to buy it there. It's the only place you can buy it. But there's not very much of it, and it's going to be super expensive. So I was warned at that exact moment, you're going to get there, and it's going to be super expensive, and it's the only place you can get it in Junshan. So we go there.
You get to like the area right around the island. So you're not on the island yet, right?
Correct. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
That is a very interesting question. On the map, we're there. On the map, it's a peninsula.
Really?
There's no island.
Ah.
Right? It's a floodplain. So on the map, we're like right there. We're like 10 minutes away, right?
And so you're in this historic place where they're making this yellow tea, and no one is drinking it. No one has it. No one's even drinking tea, which is that must be really disheartening at that stage. But it was really strange. It was like, is it totally fake news? I was convinced. Like, not only is there no Yinzhen, there is no Jun. It's not even an island. It's a peninsula. Like if you look on the map, like on Baidu Maps, like you can walk there. And to people I was asking about, they're like, oh yeah, I drove there a couple of years ago. I was like, oh shit, you drove there a couple of years ago? Okay, this is not an island. This is it's over. It's over. It's time to get to Yeong and just like spend some more time getting Heicha or something, because the yellow tea is kill. But the next morning, I still decided we should go try, and we all went together, hopped in the car, all 3 of us, and we get down as far as we can go on that road, and lo and behold, the floodwaters have risen. So for, I guess, the last 2 or 3 years, the waters are high enough now that it has returned to its island state, which is great. That's what I want to see. But there are still all these like old timers who drive their scooters like right down as far as you can go on the road. And it's so shallow. They just walk. They walk in like their big, kind of like fishing wear, right? It's like those like kind of rubbery overalls, walk to the
right?
island.
And then they just walk like halfway, and they'll stand there in like this much water, like halfway between the island and the shore, just fishing and smoking. And it's really cool to see. People, it just looks like they're standing on nothing, but they found some like post or something they can get up on, so they're almost standing at surface level, right?
That's pretty cool. Yeah,
but again, is this a place where you'd expect to find tea? that you want to drink that would be delicious. And, yeah, I don't know. Like you've had Bilochun before, right? Which I guess also is a lake tea. Longjing
Yeah.
to a certain extent is a lake tea. But for whatever reason, like in my mind, you say lake, and I think sand, I think some sort of soot, I think I don't know,
Right.
I don't know. Like lakes to me are not a lovely sounding place. I think of ducks and things that ducks
Oh
leave
yeah.
behind in lakes.
Well, see, so
I
yeah,
don't
like
know.
Bilochun, like the Dongting Peninsula and the Xishandao, those are really nice, like legit places on a very nice freshwater lake that's very well contained, very well like manicured. Like it's those are really beautiful. Hangzhou is on like, the scenic West Lake area. It's kind of on a mountainous region right by what used to be a floodplain. And so it was the Tangqian River, the Qiantang River, would just flood all the time. And then, back in like the Tang Dynasty or something, some official cleverly engineered a drainage system, created the Shihu Lake, and then, let the Qiantang just flow on its own way. And so I think Hangzhou, like that tea being on the lake, that lake is a piece of civil engineering. It used to be a floodwater. It used to be a very, very boggy. And so I guess like historically that would be more similar to what you're seeing here in Yueyang. But it is really interesting to see like, yeah, just like the rising and falling waters in that Dongting Lake.
And well, I mean, but I also, yeah, I mean, with that in mind, I think this has to have been why they chose this island, because there's no other place that looks appetizing up and down the lake that I saw, right? When we finally got to the island, it protrudes, it riseth. I don't know. It's like suddenly there are woods. There are big, tall, ancient woods on this little rock, and there's some altitude to this little island, right? Where everything was flat. It was flat in the town. It was flat in the village. It was flat the whole way there. This is the one protrusion for whatever reason, right? And of course, this is where they're going to build temples, and it's where they're going to go, hang out if you're a cool official or whatever. So we get there, and yeah, like it was really exciting to be on this little. So we're on this like little tiny, kind of souped up fishing vessel, which is like now being converted into like a tourism like a boat, I guess. And as we're going over, we finally see it, and as we're approaching the island, it's revealed indeed there is tea. There's tea all over the place, up and down the slope. So at last, tea was sighted, land ho, and we get there, and there's no factory. The factory is not there. The factory has been moved off island. It is no longer actually on the island. It was moved in 2017 or 18, apparently. And it's not really the provinces anymore. Apparently now it's like a public-private collaboration. You can look, so there's a wonderful Chinese website called iTaji. Like, I love to search companies, I guess to be the translation. And you can see who owns things, which is really always fun for tea. And if you look at like this island, okay, so on paper, it's like the Junshan Yinzhen company, right? Which takes care of everything here. But that's kind of owned by the province. But also, like, there's another, like, person with their... Whatever's going on. She says that
somebody bought it for cheap during COVID. Yeah.
Somebody bought it. I think there's more to the story. I don't know what it is, but somebody who is not any of these entities at least is in control, at least is the boss of that tourism site. And consequently, is the boss of that tea. She said,
Right.
We do still make tea on the island. Would you like to try some? 9,000 RMB a gin. And I tried some. And it was fresh from the refrigerator. And it was me and Jason and Xiaoyan. And at first whiff, that 9,000 one, that has not been surpassed in the other teas we've had off the island. But that one was truly something.
Is it worth $2-3 per gram?
Say again?
Is it worth like $2 per gram?
No. Maybe. No. I don't. I mean,
maybe.
It's hard to.
Yeah. It's unique. It's yellow
maybe.
tea. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I haven't. Again, of all the talk about all the other off-island stuff, right? We've had, which is a lot of it's good, but none of it has surpassed that. There's a chocolatiness which I've only had before in like the Huangda cha.
Yeah, that's why I like it.
That chocolatiness was there in addition to the meatiness, which seems to happen in like the middle to upper Junshan teas. So it has that meatiness, and it has that chocolatiness, and it has that kind of... it had everything. Everything was there. Everything was there for that really crazy 9,000 stuff. And for the people who, who are buying the slightly cheaper stuff from the island. It's still good, but I just think the real primo stuff made from the heirloom bushes, all done handmade on the island in the bags. That is still fantastic. But like it is, I think unfortunate when I was trying to talk to the person there, because just like in Japan, it had been so segmented. You can't talk to the factory in the same way, right? Like I want to talk, like can I talk to the Laban, right? Where's the person? Can
It's
I add
too
your
many.
WeChat?
Too much middle
No,
management.
actually, you can only add like the center's WeChat. You can't add, oh, sorry, you can't do that.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in trouble. I'm following the script.
That's right. I don't want to
Like,
get in trouble. No, I couldn't do that. And then I was asking her, like, so the stuff which people are trying in the sampler, if they get like the official island factory stuff, well, some of it's picked on the island, but guess what? It's not all of the OG heirloom cultivar. And also, guess what? She mentioned, oh, Womayo there's some which is now being grown. It's still on the North Lake Shore over in Rongcheng County. There's some which is being grown in this little town on the other end of the township. So like, I'm curious, like how much of that tea which they're selling actually is grown on the island. Supposedly, it's mostly from there. It's a little bit from these other nearby, townships and counties, but it's suspect. I feel like it's because they're the only folks in town. It's the only place you can get it, at least on that island, that they kind of get to dictate the narrative and the prices and all that. But for those interested who want to do some tea tourism, you can go there supposedly in April or June. April, May, June, that whole like 2 or 3 month window, you could go there and you can TN, you can experience these teas.
Oh.
You can go
we can
make them by hand there and
nice.
pick and make
Let's
it.
do it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure about pick. No, but definitely make. You definitely could make it. I wonder if all the tea is from there. But yeah, there are opportunities, and yeah, and to their credit, it's nice that they have all this, tea dedicated material. Like it's nice to go to a place and have it be about tea, right? As opposed to you go there, tea is like on the door somewhere, and then actually, ride on the Ferris wheel, and we're going to talk about something else. Like they really do. Tea is the theme of this island, and that's nice. Okay, so that's the island. You get there that first morning. It was great. We walked around till about 11 o'clock. Then the sun shed its grace too brightly. It was time to get the heck off that island. Take a boat, go downtown, and most people would go to the Yueyang Tower. I don't want to go. It was built in the 1950s again. It was rebuilt or whatever, right? So for me, it's like, would you go to the Yueyang Tower knowing it was rebuilt?
Of course. I mean, the Huanghelo is rebuilt hundreds of times, dozens of times.
Which is why I steer clear of the Huanghelo. I went there one time too. That was.
Actually, my Chinese teacher in university, her uncle, I'm not sure if it's a real uncle, but her uncle was one of the head designers of the most modern
of the 1980s Huanghelo.
yeah, and it's beautiful.
Okay? Well, man shall not dispute taste or whatever, right? Well, it's just like because for me, it's like it's the psychological. I know it's not the OG. I know it's not the OG, right? Like I've seen this like pathetic, decrepit like tower in Jingzhou, but because at least in psychologically, it appears to be from the 9th century. Tasty. Those like Buddhist grottos in Henan. You're talking about like the Shui Ku or whatever. When you go there, and you can see there's Tang on the ceiling, right? Da Tang. Yeah. Like wow, this is a thing from the Tang Dynasty. That gets my juices flowing for whatever reason. If I know it's contemporary, I don't know. It just it takes me out of the simulation, man.
Yeah.
So, okay. Did not go to the tower, but they've now renamed downtown to the Yueyang Tower District, so I didn't even need to. It's like they've renamed Huizhou to Huangshan City, right? Now they've renamed downtown to the Yueyanglo District, and that's where they have all the tea shops and cooperatives. They're all there. There's one centralized market, as there is in Anhui.
They're actually selling tea there.
They're actually selling tea there, which is not true for all of... It certainly was not true in Anhua. We went down there. But they were actually selling tea in this place. Yeah, so that was... We went there, and we had way too many teas. Like, to Jason's credit, he was like, we're not leaving until we go to every single one. And we went to every single one. And we did the whole circle.
So this tea is the best of all of the teas you guys drank?
Yep, yeah.
Wow. Nice.
100%, yeah.
Awesome.
And yeah, like most of what we had, I mean, it was just green tea. It was just green tea. It seemed to be anything below a certain, yeah, but anything like in like the low 300-400s, whatever. Anything lower than that, there were a lot of teas that were just like clearly from Sichuan. Clearly, it is like they were bringing it
really?
from Sichuan. They were clearly it was just like Sichuan. It's like like the sparrow tongue, swallow tongue, whatever. Yeah, it was like that kind of stuff. It was a nice shape. And then if you said, I don't want this, I want something local, they would give you something like Lao Rao's tea. Or maybe not even approaching that level of yellowness where it's like, you can taste there's a certain taro or cream, or there's something different here, right? There may be something different from like an actual typical, green tea. But yeah, most of it was not good. And it was really disheartening because we were in Yueyang. And these were producers, a lot of them who had cooperatives. They were part of the official cooperative network or the official Junshan, Yinzhen network, whatever. They had all the certifications, they had all the stamps and whatever. But like, yeah, of all those people, 2 seemed to be fairly legit, Yang and Jiang. And Yang's yellow tea, he just put it on the factory. He had nothing. He did not wrap it. It was just stacked on the floor, right? So it was like what you had seen in Anhui in Luan, but he just left it there for longer. Whereas the stuff that Jiang produced was similar to what they're doing at Huifeng, where you have the big, long, like troughs, and you have the cloth on top of the trough, right? Remember that yellowing we had seen? Yeah, so that's how he was doing it. And that seems to get a better product. Yeah, so these are the people we met. I want to go back to meet Jiang, the Jiang family, just for kind of a follow-up. Their farm and their tea and all their factory, that's all located down in the Yueyang County. So it's like, if you were to follow the lake, it would be down below the Yueyang district, way down below Junshan, kind of on the middle southern area of the lake. So that's where they're located.
Did you see tea fields around there?
I did not go there. I only went as far as the Yueyang district. Yep.
Cool.
And then the next day, we went down to Yiyang to see Heicha.
Oh, nice. And so this tea comes from which producer?
Jiang family. This
is the Jiang family.
Jiang. Yep.
Jiang. Nice. And so what are your opinions on these yellow teas? Because tell me about the yellow tea sampler. You sent me some yellow jasmine, right?
Also from him. Yeah, like talking to him, first of all, his opinion, maybe we start with his opinion. His opinion was yellow tea is not yellow tea. It was working. It was great a couple years ago. Now it's a kind of a disaster. So he branched out, I think, last year to make that yellow jasmine tea as like an experiment. So he's trying different things, I think. But yeah, he seemed like the person to talk to who actually could tell you anything about how it was processed and could explain like what was going on and how it's different from like traditional processing. Whereas like Yang was like, yeah, it's yellow tea. You put it on the ground, you pile it up, and it yellows. It munla, right? So like, this is the only guy I met who seemed to really be able to have a technical conversation. And in his opinion, it's all right. This is fine. This is what it's gonna be. I remember when he brought it out, he's like, "You want yellowed stuff? All right, you're gonna try this. It's
Buckle
okay.
up.
This is for him. It's still much like with Lao Rao, or for that matter for Huifeng. It's still not not quite what they want, right? There still is this sense of incomplete realization."
And it's interesting, because you say Jiang's doing it very similar to the other guy in the Jinjishan, where he has the big trough, he's covering it, he's doing the different mongs, and then I think in the jasmine, that yellow jasmine, that looks very much like his like 50% like yellow tea, right, from Anhui.
Yeah, and so there's the jasmine tea. Then he has his own big yellow, which you've tried the big yellow. You do not like it as much as the Anhui one. To be honest, I don't know if I fully remember the Anhui. It's been such a long time since I've had that Donghua Zhuang and Anhui was more chocolatey, right?
Yeah,
I don't
super
taste
chocolatey.
any chocolate in this one. I don't think I do. So.
I taste more like corn, like cream.
Yeah, so that I didn't super like his, but I must say my expectations were really low when I first saw it. He took it out of a tin, and it was wrapped in like tinfoil, right, in a tin. So I was thinking
these are the coins
in Seattle. It's coin shape. This is the coin, the gold coins of Yuo. When I first saw his Huangda Cha in the gold coin form, I was thinking this is going to be terrible. So my expectations were super low. I just tasted like 15 shops of not so good tea. So I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. And it was good. It was, I mean, or, you know, I'm not really a Huangda chai. I definitely feel like you like the bigger leaves, right? And what they do. I like, I guess, the smaller leaves, like, you know, closer to a green tea as opposed to closer to a pu'er or closer to an oolong. And of those like smaller leaf ones, he had the best one, right? Best one we had. Of the bigger leaves one, he had the only one we saw in the whole market. That was the only one. Everyone else there was just selling either green tea or not so good smaller leaf yellow tea. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you think this compares to the stuff we got in the Junshan? Because this area supposedly has a longer history. And so with that longer history, you would assume an unbroken tradition of how to make yellow tea. Where we saw in Anhui, they're kind of reinventing it. They're reverse engineering it. They're trying to rediscover how to make it. Do you think that they have, you know, just a better grasp on the process here in Junshan than they do in Anhui?
I think so to a certain extent. Because at least with Zhang and some other people there, I think there's at least knowledge that, like, there is yellow tea, they know how to produce it, and they're just not executing it. Whereas in Luan, like, you may remember we got to the tea shop, that first tea market there. There were people there who didn't even know there was yellow tea being produced. Like the Wang family, he's like, "There's yellow tea." He called up his friend. "You got yellow tea over there? There's yellow tea over, right?" So remember that interaction with the big.
They're like,
big guy?
"Sure," and then it was all just like that cultivar, right? It wasn't actually yellow tea.
Yeah, but no, Batcave guy Wang, the father, right? He called his friend and was like, "Is there yellow tea in Huashan? You know about this?" So like, this is a guy in the tea market, professional tea producer for 30 years, and he didn't know the next county over they had yellow tea. So at least in Yueyang, there was knowledge of what was going on in the island. Everyone in the tea market would say, well, you know, the island stuff is too expensive. You know, my stuff is, you know, the best approximate. So they know this is not the real deal, and they will always sell it to you as an approximation, right? At least
That's cool.
At least to us, they were not trying to truly deceive us that bad.
Yeah.
So I think there's more knowledge of yellow tea, but people there don't drink it, just like in Anhui, most local people don't drink yellow tea. In Yueyang, I asked everyone, what do you drink in the morning? They drink green tea. They drink Maojian. So green tea is what they're drinking. They're not drinking yellow tea there. It's not part of their daily life or culture. There is no tea culture or ritual developed around it. It's very much something I think used to be for the emperor, and it was for officials and state guests, and now it's, you know, for the luxury tea market. But I will say one thing. Just that experience, like, at the Tea Culture Center, whatever you want to call it, when they opened up the stuff from the fridge, I smelled it, and I could, like, see, like, the dust, like, the how coming off out of the bag. And it was the early morning, so I guess maybe how the light was hitting it. Like, that whole sensory experience. I'm not an aesthete, right? I'm not a person who really cares about, like, feelings or smells or whatever, but that was something, and I really was, like, I guess, moved by it. And I have not had a tea experience since then like that, I guess, in the last 2 or so months. So there's really something there to Junshan Yinzhen. It's unfortunate that the very best of it seems to be totally locked off. Maybe if we spend more time there, we should definitely go back next year. We can find even better stuff, even closer stuff, right?
It would be cool to do the Tian. Like, to make a video of, like, the processing and the Tian, and then honestly see if we can use some of our fame, right? And be like, hey, we're actually doing this for international markets. See if we can get, like, somebody to open some doors and show us behind the scenes of the actual Junshan Mountain stuff.
I'm telling you, if we can talk to whoever this Laoban is, there's gotta be a way to get a better deal. There's a way better deal. Yeah, so, like...
see if he'll take us on a ride in his Lamborghini.
Or, you know, now that she made the mistake of mentioning some other places with tea fields where they're making it for the island, maybe if we go to Rongcheng County or some of these townships up there, the tea fields, maybe someone knows someone, right? So I feel like, you have to go through the back door somehow.
Right, so this is the first year we're carrying the Junshan yellow tea, and it sounds like we're already getting some ideas for next year. what to go through it. If you're interested in trying this yellow tea, it's available on the One River Tea website right now. We have the sampler, which is very affordable, and then some different types of teas as well. And then, yeah, let us know which ones you're interested in, and we will continue sourcing it next year.
Right on.
Alex, do you have any closing words?
No, I'm just excited for another cup of the bog water.
Yeah, right. This we let Jason name this tea, Bogwood Whispers.
Thank you, Jason, for your free labor. Thank you for the bog.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I think Bogwood Whispers is really great because knowing our style, we would probably just call it like, fake Junshan, Yingzhen.
I would call it fake. Yeah, I don't know, Junshan approximate or something like that.
But at the same time, like who would look at Junshan approximate and be like, oh, that's an exciting tea? But Bogwood Whispers, wow, I'm interested.
Yeah.
Anyways.
We should do another episode someday about tasting, but maybe not today. So yeah, to come eventually, yellow tea tasting.
Yeah, how to enjoy yellow tea, how to drink it, what tastes you should be looking at, and the different tastes of yellow teas that we have on the website. Again, thank you guys for joining this kind of long episode. This is Derek from One River Tea.
Alex
from One River Tea. Yeah, until next time, guys. Brew happy.
I like saying hello or goodbye.